I was always passionate about sports. I got that from my mother. My mom and I were the ones who would sit there on New Year's Day and watch 4 bowl games back then. We would start with Cotton Bowl in the morning and then just watch until the Orange Bowl at night. We would just sit there and watch football. And I really got my love of sports from her. And it was one of these things that I knew I wanted to be a journalist. I knew I loved sports, but I didn't see a way to put those together because I didn't see anybody who looked like me who was doing that at that particular time. And so it was always something that I was interested in and that I watched, but I couldn't visualize putting those two together until the NFL Today. Brent Musburger was kind of the ringmaster, and then Phyllis George. And Phyllis George was the first female that I saw on a regular basis who would cover sports. And she would do a feature. She would do a player feature. That was the first time that the light bulb kind of went off, and I go, oh, I can do this, and I can do that, and I can put it together. When I was going to graduate school and I was working for the South Bend Tribune, again, I walked across the hall and said, y'all need help. Of course they did, and that was the first time that I got to cover high school sports, high school football and high school basketball, because it's as passionate up there in northern Indiana as it is in Cincinnati. So I got to cover games, and then I got to cover Notre Dame games, and that was my real taste of, on a regular basis, being able to cover sports. And then my first television job in South Bend, again, if somebody was sick, I said, can I do sports? And I did. And so it wasn't necessarily anything that was in my job description, but I volunteered for it because I wanted to do it. And I wanted to get the experience. There are so many women who went before me that really blazed the trail, and there were more women on a national basis than a local basis. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, it's what you get used to. If you get used to seeing women doing something, or if you're a little girl and you see a woman doing something and it's someone who looks like you, then it makes it possible. Then it makes it something that you can do. I had the opportunity to interview Billie Jean King. You talk about somebody who knocked down doors and broke down all kinds of barriers. And I've told this story 1,000 times, but it's so true. After I finished the interview with Billie Jean King, I shook her hand and I said, I just want to thank you. You've heard this a million times, but I just want to thank you for everything that you've done to allow me to do what I'm doing now, and doing sports. And she said, that's great. She said, but let me ask you something. How do they treat you here? Nobody ever asked me that before. How do they treat you here? And so I told her, I said, well, I've worked with these guys here in Cincinnati for years. We've grown up together. They know my work. They respect my work. And so they treat me very well. And she said, good. Pay it forward and pass it on. And I think that's so true of any of us. And I don't care if you're in sports, television, whatever you are, in any profession. Pay it forward and pass it on. That's nice that you're the first partner who's a female in your law firm, but don't be the only one. As time goes on, athletes are more used to seeing women in the locker room covering games. And so I think that the more that women get into this profession and do what they love for the right reasons, hopefully the easier it will be.